Good morning, friends. This is Paul. I pray your day is filled with peace and joy. Good morning, fellow Christians. It's Paul. It's good to be alive and in God's grace. Wow, things are moving fast in the world. It seems like the old game 52 card pickup. That's where you throw all the cards on the deck into the air and let them then pick them up when they hit the ground. Dumb, right? Yeah, I agree. The world is in more panic now than I've seen in my lifetime, and that's nearly 75 years. Not just in one area, but in all areas and at all depths. Now I long for the good old days when I was in the 8th grade during the Cuban Missile Crisis. We would practice crawling under our desk or just lying on top of them for nuclear war drills. Like that would save us. Some people were on edge and in panic, but we were too detached to really care about a nuclear war across the ocean, especially right before the upcoming Spanish test. Those were the good old bad days, right? Right. Now we're living in such a time that I really believe whatever or whoever kept society in check has been withdrawn from the earth. That's scripture in 2 Thessalonians 2 and 7. I'm too old, too big to fit under a desk, and I'm too knowledgeable of the facts, oh, that ignorance was bliss, to hide anywhere but under the shadow of his wings. That is where I will stay with him. That is a place when I am giving to the poor, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, rejoicing, praising, and working Jesus. That's what it means to be under the shadow of his wings. The kingdom within us shall not suffer loss. Even if we perish at the hands of evil, they cannot kill a soul that is rejoicing in Jesus. Matthew 10:28. Now I want to encourage you. Keep on keeping on. Pray without ceasing. Bless others. Live a life of joy and peace. Live because your King provides for you everything you will ever need. He is on his throne, and he will always be on his throne. Never despair. Thank you.
Hey Paul, I really liked your blog. I think you hit on something that definitely in my lifetime has been like really, I guess, significant for my generation. I'm only 20 and we have lived through more once in a lifetime events than I can count on both my hands. So there was COVID, there were the murder hornets at one point, there was the earthquakes, and so there was all of these things happening all at once. And for me, that definitely makes me think, well, obviously we're living in something. I think it's the end times, but regardless of if it's the end times or not, God is definitely moving and shaping something now just because of the natural events that we see happening. What I think is kind of really significant about that is, especially for a young person, it can be super easy to worry about what is my future going to look like, especially with all of that going on. What advice do you have for young people when you're kind of living in that in between where each year is like, I didn't think we'd make it this far. I didn't think we'd make it that far.
I think, Mac, that regardless of your age, we all have something in common that are living. And that is, we only live one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all we have. So if we live beyond that, it's going to be coupled with fear.
Right.
Because obviously, whether you want to call it end of times or Jacob's troubles, this is not the time we want to live in because of circumstances that seem to be overwhelming everything we believe. Mm-hmm. It seems to be there is such a stirring on everything, every foundation we ever had of history or knowledge or morals or peace or the commandments and everything else seems to be shattered by people who want to destroy it around us. But here's the point. My future is today. If I love God and I follow him and I'm obedient to what he says with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, love my neighbor as myself, then in God's economy, that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I get to heaven, there's not a door on heaven that says PhDs,
Right.
master's degrees, bachelor's degree, blue collar, white collar, no collar. It's not like that in heaven. It's not that we're judged by what we accomplished, except in our life loving Christ and doing those things. And, you know, I've had a long life. I've spent a lot of it. I counted one day how many years I spent in school. And I'm just talking about from the day I started my bachelor's until the day I finished my doctorate. You know, 10 years, beyond that. And I'm like, okay, to get certified by man. And yet I want to say, what does God care about me? What does God want me to be? To live my life, to love those around me, to show mercy and grace. Because who really counts? When I get up to heaven, that one thing God's going to say is, hello, Dr. Riggins? No, he won't say that. Hopefully what he says is to me, is what he says to every single one of us who love him. And that is, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And that's all we have to be. Because when you think about it, everything we think about is trying to survive in this life. But this life, as Job said, is like a vapor of smoke.
Right.
It appeareth, then it whisk, vanisheth away. So what do I do every day? And how I enjoy every day? And there's enough happiness in every day, peace in every day, joy in every day, that when I see things around me, that's why my favorite concept is get under the shadow of his wings. And that's like the old adage, if you've ever raised chickens or seen a mother hen with babies, every time something comes around that's frightful to the babies, the mom raises her feathers, her wings, and the baby chicks just huddle under her. And then they're covered. And I think that's the truth of everything that happens to us. My advice to you is live every day the fullness. Love in that day, love people in that day, love God in that day, and enjoy the day the Lord hath made. This is the day the Lord hath made. I will. Now, the whole meaning of that is not around it that the Lord hath made it, but I will rejoice and be glad in it. Other than that, be a success every day.
Yeah.
You're a PhD every day, okay? Which doesn't mean piled higher and deeper.
Yes.
But it means that you've come to the highest point of understanding, and that is wisdom, and that's in God.
Well, regardless of how much you worry about tomorrow's problems are tomorrow's problems. You can't worry about them today. You can't fix them today. And I'm starting to get to the point where it's like, well, it's going to happen regardless of how much I worry about it, so might as well not worry about it.
You know, if you believe that the steps of a righteous man or woman are ordered by the Lord, that means he's already got your life outlined because you've already submitted to him.
Right.
Now, your job is to find it. Not to create it, but simply to find it. And the way you find it is when you're doing what the Lord wants you to do, you'll have peace.
Right.
And when you have peace, then that's all you need. Because it passes all understanding. That means, how could you be at peace whenever the world is in tumultuous situation? Well, because I know that God's in charge of the world. The world's not in charge of me, but God's in charge of the world. And God's in charge of me.
Thanks, Paul. I like your advice. I think it applies not just to end times, but to all times. And we could all use a bit of it.
Thank you, dear. And I pray that you have a long life and come to that place of great understanding. And you see the path of what God's got for you.
Right.
Because he's already laid it out. He's already given you the gifts and the future to be very successful, faithful. Thanks, Mac. Bye.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining us for Around the Supper Table. At Sanctuary Family Farms, we want to be real. Whether that's through our blogs, daily verses, or even Nana's recipes, we want to share the messages that God has laid on each of our hearts. If you liked what you heard today or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook and YouTube at Sanctuary Family Farms or our website at www.sanctuaryfamilyfarms.com, where we share our recipes and blogs and sell farm fresh beef and pork. We can't wait for you to join us again for next week's episode.